Hello, Rick. How are you?
Hello, I'm very well, thank you. And how are you?
I'm good. I am heating up,
You're heating up. Yes, yes,
heating
yes.
up as we speak.
Yeah.
Um, Welcome
And
everyone
we're
to
talking about heating up as far as temperature is concerned, right?
temperature. Temperature. Yeah, I may have been a little bit heated up right before we started recording as we were discussing the topic and just finding different perspectives on it.
Absolutely. And the topic is stress management.
Stress management. Like who wouldn't heat up thinking about stress management? I do. Just thinking about it.
Well, and it is a relevant topic. I mean, I think you did the little bit of research, Googling about some of the top things that people look for, like when they're looking for some how to's or whatever strategies around managing their stress. And that comes up a lot. And and also recently on the Canadian news broadcast, they had announced a research study that or survey, I guess would be more like it, where people that were due for early retirement were saying they would be willing to keep working if it wasn't for the stress of the job itself,
Right.
which
Right.
is interesting. Like I find that very interesting because part of my part of what intrigued me back, well, close to 30, almost 40 years ago when I first got involved in the ambulance service was the the differences in experiences that all these people had. Like there was a variety of them. Like some people, it looked like they were just having the best time of their life, and other people it was like every call was really heavy, really serious. They were, in some cases they were almost angry that they were going, kind of thing. So it was interesting to see the relationship between the work and the experiences that people were having about the work, and then pointing to, how can I manage that. The stress of the work is getting to me, the vacations and all this other kind of stuff. So it's a relevant topic, and we can explore some possible how to's and strategies that we have both used in the past. Why are
We're
you
laughing because we were debating whether or not we should get into the how to's, and we're having very different points of view on that. And, like what is coming up for me as you're talking is, in a sense, we were, before we came on, we're kind of saying the same things, but we were also like not saying the same thing, right? So, so let me just explain for a minute, right? So, like stress management, right? Stress, like anything, is uncomfortable. Can we agree on that, right?
Uh,
Stress, when we feel stressed, there's discomfort there. So,
well, it's a very
anything,
physical thing. It's a very,
right? Very
you know,
physical. And when anything that's uncomfortable comes up, it's just a gauge, right? It's just a gauge. Now, what you were pointing to, which I'm going to let you speak about, is really the thinking behind it, right? And what I was really focusing on was like, well, how do we shift that? Like, what do we do to shift out of that, right? Ultimately, though, what stress is just a signal. It's
yeah.
just a signal that there's something that doesn't really jive with us, doesn't really work for us, right? And in my opinion, in today's world, we have gotten really used to living with that level of discomfort, right? Like the negative chatter, like all the condition, like all the things that we always talk about, but also the amount of stress that we are allowing into our lives, right? That we have become accustomed to, that we have become that we tolerate. That
Well,
has also become our normal, right?
well, and that's where I was kind of like I was sharing with you a little bit about the story of previous a recent experience between having two different days, but one felt very full,
Right.
empowering, right?
Right.
There was lots of things that were going on. Like I said to my wife when we retired for the day, I said, I can't believe all the things we did that today. Like all the things, like, like it was like a 24-hour day in a 12-hour period. And then there are other times when I've been sort of just as the time being just as filled, but it felt very busy and chaotic and stressful and at the end of the day, very tiring and not empowering at all. And I'm curious about those things. I'm always curious about what shifts one day into another type of day. Like what is the work that we're both, me and my partner, are experiencing right now, but one has a different experience about what's going on in front of them than I do, right? So I'm, and I talk about that, where is that? And that's where I love to explore. I love to, you know, really, I call it an exploration, I guess, is this inside out nature of where our experiences come from versus sort of this notion of where I thought outside in. I always thought it was always the work that was doing it. I always thought it was the boss that was doing it. And well, it appears that way, and it's a very strong appearance, right? I mean, we talked about all the different things that are going on, right? But there's something about that experience side of things that points towards that inside nature, because I know every time I had a strategy for managing something outside, it would have a temperance piece to it. Like it would work temporarily, but it wouldn't work forever. And then I'd be looking for something else to do something differently, right? And I tried meditation, and I tried this, and I tried. I even looked at what's that latest EFT and tapping and all these different other things, and they have been very helpful. People have had huge success from taking on those modalities. But what's interesting is that because they were so temperate and they only worked a period of time, I always thought that I needed to manage the circumstances all the time. So, well, maybe change jobs, and I can't tell you how many jobs I've changed. And and again, it seemed like whatever was going on at that first job was going on in the second job. So the common denominator was me, not the circumstance.
Right.
Anyways, I like exploring in that direction.
Right. And I agree with everything you said, with the exception that I'm looking at those circumstances in a slightly different way, right?
Sure.
I think that's what we're debating and going back and forth a little bit before we came on. And I agree that it is anything in life, your experiences of it is what really matters, right? Like how you're experiencing a specific thing very much depends on your attitude towards it, or what you allow to take up space within you, right?
Yeah.
What you allow to affect the way you feel about life or things or your day or the people that you are interacting with. What to me that points to, though, is that oftentimes seeing that circumstance that is not serving us, that is creating the stress, let's say, because I'm in this job that I really hate, I feel really stressed by it, right? It's also just as important, right? Because it's not going to be just by sitting back and acknowledging that you're going to change the circumstances, right? Yeah, and I get you have to change up from the inside out first, but it's also important to, when we want to change our lives, also what's around us changes. And when I think about changing my life, I want to see those circumstances change. And I get it that the change has to come from the inside out, but I also want to see what's on the outside to be different, to show up differently, right? And so perhaps it is the acknowledgement of, I am really stressed out. And it's not the job that stresses me out. It's the fact that I am in a job that doesn't fit me, that's not in alignment with me, that stresses me out. It's the fact that I have ignored that signal for years or months or however long it is, that there is something about this job that doesn't just go with me. Maybe it's on the books is the perfect job for me. Maybe I make all the money that I want to make. Maybe it's the perfect job for the degree that I got. But it keeps me at work 12 hours a day. The people that I work with are not people that I would love to spend time with, right? So these circumstances are real and exist, right? And it's not about I'm not suggesting go and change the people and tell them to change the job and make your hours shorter. It's about really recognizing, well, that doesn't work for me, right? It's about the choices that I make in regards to the things that are in that moment creating the stress. And the stress comes from the fact that I am pushing myself against friction, right? I'm still going to work, I'm still staying at that job, I'm still or like maybe I'm not taking care of myself, right? So that's what creates the stress. But there is a point in which, if you want to see the circumstances change, let's say we figure out what the problem is. I'm really stressed out. It's not the job's fault. It's just that the job doesn't go, it's not in alignment with me. Then the problem is that I am not making a decision about how can I get out of this job? What else can I do? How can I find something that's more in alignment, right? So I think we're kind of saying similar things, but I'm also pointing to, well, what can I do about it? It's not just about slowing down, right? Slowing down does change our experience of things. Slowing down does allow us to see things in a different way. Slowing down does allow the wisdom to come in to where now we come up with a strategy, but what I'm going to do about it is just as important.
Right. And well, I think almost you answered the question in the sense of when you have that experience of knowing, okay, so first of all, I think there's one fundamental step. One is to notice that you're in the trees. It's
Right.
like, right. So part of what consciousness or raising consciousness is having that awareness, right? And the biggest indicator of something going on is our feelings. Like something is out of sorts. So we're in touch with it sounds kind of wooey, but we're in touch with our feelings. We know when we're stressed. We know what
Stress
overwhelms,
is a feeling,
anger,
right?
all
Stress
those
is
things. That's right. Right. And the longer that you are tapped into this stressful feeling, it will have a physical manifestation, right? It's a mind-body connection. So then, worse things happen. So I think, when it comes to managing stress, we have to be aware of, if we don't manage it, especially up as soon as possible, the longer we hold ourselves in there, the worse our outcomes in health, right? It just snowballs, right? So
it's a
yeah, we
snowball.
need
Yeah,
to do that. We need to do
yeah,
that, right? And
right,
and the first part is being aware that a change needs to occur.
right. But it was very much, I love that you used the word snowball, because I was literally thinking about that word and you voiced it. It very much is, because stress creates more stress. Like if you stay in it, it charges itself,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
But it emboldens, right? So what you were pointing to is this concept of really stepping back and slowing down, right? I don't have to feel the stress. I
No.
feel the stress, and then now I can acknowledge this doesn't really feel good. I don't want to feel like this anymore, right? But typically, where we go to is like, oh, the job and the boss and the hours. Can you, like, we go into rehearsal, right? We go into resenting all the things that are contributing to that, right?
Well,
And there
yeah.
are contributing factors, right?
Right. And when you are charged that way, right? So like I was thinking energy today. I was like when we throw our energy into the stress, let's just call it a stressful situation, right? If I throw my energy into the stressful situation, my strategies and solutions are going to be very, very limited, because I'm stuck in the trees. I don't see the forest. I don't see what other opportunities are there, right? So my fundamental go-to is, first of all, recognizing that I'm stuck there, recognizing I'm pointing my energy in the wrong direction, and to literally slow down. And it's not it's just even by the recognizing that, oh, I'm in the forest right now, is enough for me to slow down enough to get that separation between what's going on and what my thinking about what's going on is separated, right? So one has to calm down. And like you pointed out, when you do slow down, and you move yourself away from the circumstances, yeah, things do look differently, but also solutions start to appear differently. Because right now, if I'm right in it, like if you talk about the work thing, all it looks like is I have to get rid of work. I have to get out of this
All of
job.
this to do. How am I gonna
Oh,
not work
totally,
out?
totally,
How am I tell
right?
my boss? I'm gonna just, tell them this is not gonna work for me. Like, maybe those are steps that you do still have to take.
Maybe you
But
do.
right,
Maybe you
maybe you
do.
do. And at the same time, the slowing down piece allows you to come up with the next piece. And I think where you and I were kind of not understanding each other is the fact that there is steps after that. And I know you don't like to go into the how to's, but I find it helpful to hear how people manage things like that. And in my experience, it's actually the opposite of what it feels like I need to do when I'm stressed out, which is like, I gotta get this done as fast as possible. Now I gotta work more hours. I gotta work
Mhm.
this weekend so that I can get it done so that I won't be stressed out anymore, right? No, that doesn't work. And for as long as I'm thinking about it from a place of I feel pressure, I'm not gonna get it done, I'm so overworked, I'm so tired, I still gotta get it done. As long as I come from that place, the only solution that I can see is how can I get this thing done as fast as possible?
Yeah,
More hours, more work, right?
yeah.
And that just
More
makes me more,
mistakes, more
yeah,
whatever. Yeah,
exactly. That just makes me more stressed out because now I'm tired. Now I'm
yeah.
making mistakes. Now I'm not focused. Now I'm resentful. Now I feel exhausted. Now I didn't do any of the things I would have liked to do instead, right? But what I find,
Builds up, builds up,
right,
builds up.
it builds up. It's a snowball. But really, what needs to happen, it's a little bit what you're saying, slowing down. No, I actually need to stop, like you were saying, walk away, go on a hike, do some self care, meditate, go get a massage, and when I have done that, and then in retrospect, I have thought about it, like, well, I just really took a few hours away because I still was left with the things that I still
Well,
needed
you
to do.
still have work to do.
Right. I still had to do
Absolutely.
that. But I took a few hours to go and like slow down and recharge. Then when I came back, I got it done like this. But
Yeah.
when I insist and stay and push and like add more hours, add to the stress, basically, without really realizing that's what I'm doing. Now I don't like what I came up with. Now I didn't really quite get it done the way I would have liked to. Now I'm really exhausted and I missed out on a bunch of other stuff. And whenever I've looked back at those two instances, it really actually took me a lot longer to get it done by putting more work, more time, pushing, harder, like staying at home because no, I don't have time to just relax and take time for myself. It's counterintuitive, right? And
Yeah.
I think that the fact that the reason why it is counterintuitive is because we're conditioned to
Yes.
respond to stress by just reacting to it.
Yeah.
I'm stressed. Somebody's honking. I gotta get out of the way. Like somebody's behind me in the car. Now I gotta drive a little faster. Because
Or I
the
had a
way
really stressful day and I need to take a drink. Okay.
that
Like
works
those
sometimes.
those well, okay. When
That does work. But yes,
but I mean, it's just but it is a conditional response, and
it
you're
is.
absolutely correct. Like we get trapped into thinking that something on the outside is going to fix us. Yes, there are
Right.
things that we do on the outside that assist us, but those things, like a lot of them, are detrimental. They cause addictions, they cause all sorts of other different things when we're trying to mitigate something that really had no control over us in the first place. And
Right.
that's what I keep pointing to, is that it is an inside job, and 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 when I work more towards pointing myself in that direction, I'm able to slow down and just allow something to occur to me. It's like, and it's not like I just sit there and go, okay, what do I need to do? Like it's something just occurs to me to separate myself from the work. Like, I look at my schedule and I got, oh man, I have to have like 10 things done by the end of the day, kind of a thing.
Right.
and like your example, if I sit there and brew about the 10 things that I have to do, I'm not going to do it. But counterintuitively, you know what? I'm just going to go for a walk right now. And maybe 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, maybe half an hour. I don't know how long it'll be, but I'll settle. I'll slow down enough and I'll settle and I'll come back and I'll go, oh, you know what? I don't have to do 5 of them. Like, why am I even worried about 5? Because I got clarity now.
Right. You certainly don't come up with the solution while you're in it and feeling like you're chasing your own tail, right? You're
Yeah.
chasing all the things that you have to do. For
You're
sure.
chasing your own tail, and then because you forgot that it's your tail.
Right. So yeah, the slowing down piece is crucial, right?
Yeah,
I
that's
guess the part that I was feeling animate about is that sometimes I see people just stopping there. And then what I find that happens is that then things don't get done. And then now you find yourself in a situation that creates even more stress on a different level because you didn't get the things that you needed to get done, right? So if I have a job, it doesn't align with me, it really stresses me out. And I do the work and I realize that, you know what, it's not in alignment with me, right? I
sure.
still have bills to pay and I'm
Yep.
still getting paid for that job, right? So to just sit back and say, this doesn't align with me, now I'm just going to slow down, it's not going to solve that problem. You still have to show up and do the work so that you can get paid, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
The
So
action step here is reassessing things, making different decisions, come up with a plan that's going to allow you to get out of that job and perhaps get a different job, right? Or maybe start your own business or whatever it is, right? But the key point is awareness, step back, get clarity, and then freaking do something about it. You
well,
gotta do something about it. You can't just step back and just sit there or like on a meditation pill, because I think that is a misunderstanding that I often see, right? Like it becomes very bypassy, and I don't like that because I've
well,
seen people that are like at, at peace. I'm so at peace with myself, like I'm on a different level of understanding. And then when you look a little bit deeper, there are really stressed on different levels because maybe they can't keep a job, they can't pay their bills, they can't, it's like, yeah, you step back and like you're just looking at life from a different lens, and then you forgot to take the action that's going to create actually the things that you want
well,
to create,
if
right?
there is a step to take, yeah. But I think what what people get hooked into is, I mean, the reason why we're looking at what we're talking about in stress management is because people want a different experience of what's going on right now. They're not
Right,
happy with the experience they're having. And
right,
so, and I think there's part of that is acknowledging the fact that, yeah, you are having an experience and, understanding where that experience might be coming from, but that doesn't stop you from making a difference and moving forward, right?
right,
Sort of like, and I find that it's more the opposite. The more I have more clarity in my life, the more things I'm actually doing. And
right.
and and here's another subject I think we looked at today, and maybe we'll do it soon, but it's called procrastination.
Right.
Right?
Who has dealt with that, right?
Yeah, but I mean, like, part of, I think, the reluctancy for people to move forward is a couple of things. One is the big sin, insecurity, right?
Right,
The relationship they have with uncertainty. So those are the two big things, right? They say, well, I'd love to change my job, but what would I be doing? Well, I don't know what you would be doing, but we can certainly talk about that. So, or I don't know what my future is going to look like. Well, nobody does, right? So those things tend to hold people into their comfort zone, or what you say, you know, um, I might as well just do this job I'm in now. It's paying the bills, regardless of how frustrating I feel. Um, but it's
so
it's the
so I
insecurity.
love that. I
Yeah, go
love
ahead.
that, right? I love that. I'm gonna keep doing this job, pays the bills, right? that is the place where, now that you've seen it, you've seen that that is what's causing the discomfort. To keep pointing at the job as the problem, that's a little disingenuous. It's
Yes.
not the job that's a problem. The problem is that you're not doing anything about it.
Sure.
So
Well, of course.
we got into a point where we're completely agreeing. That's where the inside out perspective comes from. It's
Yes.
not the job. It's the fact
No.
that you are sitting in comfort and you're not taking the steps that perhaps feel a little uncomfortable, right?
Mm-hmm.
As any change does, to change that, right?
Yeah.
So that you don't have to show up at that same job, right? So
And have the
that
same experience.
and have the same experience, right? So
Yeah.
that circumstance is there. It's no longer, it's not the job that's creating the discomfort, is your relationship with it that's creating the discomfort. It's your unwillingness in that moment to do what it takes to change that relationship.
Well, and it's tied to your beliefs
To your
and your
belief.
condition, right? Which that's all part of the inside. When you understand that the only thing that's really holding you back is that idea, that belief that, oh, well, you know what, I can't do this. It's like, yes, I know it's stressful, but right?
Right.
That's just ego talk. Anything after the but is all ego talk, right? And
But I
yeah,
won't be able to get a better job, but I won't be able to get paid the same way. But it's going to take me a long time to figure this out. But how am I going to quit this? But
yeah,
it pays the bills, so maybe it's worth it, and then you
yeah,
doubt yourself, right?
yeah. And
Right.
I'll stay with the experience of being miserable. We'll just see how many friends I keep, and but there is something on offer when you take the first step, which is having that awareness that something you would like to have something change,
Right.
right? And when you take that first step, and we're talking tiny steps, we're not talking about putting a 5-year plan together here. We're
Right.
just talking about exploring, right?
Right.
So when you remove yourself away from the situation and you have more clarity about the situation, it's like, oh, you know what, I'd like to open up a hot dog food stand. you know things like that. You kind of point towards what more aligns with your values. And there's actually a really cute commercial um, about this guy that was involved in a kind of a mundane job, but he buys a cookbook, and he notices that his sandwiches are just sandwiches, right? And so he starts to go use the cookbook, and he's making these creative sandwiches, and next thing you know, his buddies are coming over and he's making lunch for his buddies at work and all this other kind of stuff, and he's having a really great time. And he's walking home one day and he notices that there's a for sale sign at a restaurant. And then that's kind of where the ending goes. And that's what I'm calling about. Like, when you find yourself in that boredom of that work and that circumstances, right? And so he had some separation from that boredom. As long as he was in boredom, he wouldn't have been able to pick up that cookbook, right?
Right.
So he's sort of like, oh, okay. So then he took the next step. And then, I don't know, I just find sometimes these magical moments come up, and he goes, look, there's a restaurant for sale. Now, what is the belief systems that come in after that, right? It's like, oh, I have no money, I have no this. Well, why don't we just take the next step? Why don't we just see? Why don't we just inquire how much it is in the first place, instead of thinking I can't afford it, right? Which is just extra layers of thinking. So
And that's I love that what you just pointed to, because even when we overcome one piece of it,
yeah,
then what happens is, when like beliefs are really ingrained within us, we're wired to think in a certain way. Now we shift that belief onto the next thing, right?
yeah,
Where am I going to get the money? Who am I to open a restaurant, right? Like, even when that opportunity presents, that's where self-sabotage comes in, right? Like, the
absolutely.
belief now shows up in like camouflaged in a different shape and form
Yeah,
within a different circumstance,
yeah.
which
But it's
leads
still you.
us, right? Still you, and again, the circumstances keep showing up in a certain way because there's a place of growth that still needs to happen, right?
Absolutely,
And
absolutely. And who knows where that restaurant, if you know, if he took the next step, where it might lead, right? I mean, I've heard so many stories very similar tied to restaurants. I have a passion for food and cooking, by the way. Um, and you know, where people, I'd love to be part of this restaurant, but I can't afford you. You know, and he says, well, how about if you become a partner? Why don't you, you know, like there's other strategies that come in. We only have these limited ideas and we're not aware of all the different things that can happen. So that's when clarity, I love being in that moment of clarity, right? It's like that you're in the shower, you're all relaxed, and all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute,
right.
right? So
I mean, with stress management, but just came in for me as a thought is if you're stressed, what causes stress is too much going on at the same time, too many things, too many thoughts, whatever it is. Well, to counter that, you got to do the opposite of it.
totally.
That's just, if there's one tool or technique that we could point to, is that where it is to slow down by moving, stepping back from it, or it's to go for a walk, or it's to meditate, or it's to go work out, or it's to jump off an airplane, whatever helps you slow down.
With a parachute, with a parachute.
With a parachute, or have one glass of wine. I'll throw that in there too. I
Well,
think
yeah.
it's
I mean, in the moment,
right,
right? You're
right,
always doing the best you can, and
right,
it feels like that's what it is. When it
right,
becomes a how-to, that's when it turns into an addiction. It's sort of like, oh, I
right.
have to keep drinking because, you know.
Maybe it is I need to go jump in the river and swim. Whatever it is, right? Really, it is that it is what's going to counter that is the opposite of what is causing it.
Yeah, there's a phrase I fell in love with for I've been using it for the last 40 plus years. What resists persists,
Right,
and it points exactly to what you're talking about.
right,
The more we get into it, it's almost like I can't sleep, I can't sleep. So the more you resist sleeping or staying awake, you stay awake. Well, why don't you try the opposite, right? You
right,
know, see if you can actually resist sleeping
right.
and see what happens. It's a fun experiment. It's actually a fun
Was
experiment.
or like I worked so many hours this week because I
Mm-hmm.
have to get this stuff done. Okay. Is working more hours going to stress me out? Without the but I need to get it done, right? But I still need to get it done. Is that going to create more stress? Yes. Are you going to like that? No. So that's really not your solution. There was a formula. I think that's the formula for me
Yeah.
is when I cannot rely on my mind to
Mm,
guide me, it's like, what is this? Is it creating a similar experience? Is it creating a similar
yeah.
feeling? If the
Yeah.
answer is yes,
Yeah.
it's kind of like I have a fire and I want to put it out and I just put more wood in it.
Well, yeah, and thinking somehow that's going to correct it.
That's when I correct it. No, what I need to do is I need to put some water on that fire so
Yeah.
that it's no longer burning the way it is,
Yeah.
right?
Or give yourself distance
Give
away
yourself distance from it.
from it. It's that hot and cold game. I like too, right? It's sort of like if it's heated, well, maybe that's not where you should be going. Right? You want it, right? So anyway, that's yeah. I mean, the answers are out there
And
if, when you're
in
paying attention. When you're paying attention to yourself, right?
right, the answers are within for sure.
Yeah. I mean, we
And
all have
do
go-to.
something about stuff.
Well, yeah. I mean, like
Do something
take a
about it
step.
once you see it.
Yeah.
Like don't just see it and then play the guru. It's like that's wonderful. That's
You must
very
find your inner peace.
no, that's very wholesome, and elevated consciousness, whatever you want to call it. But I've met many people that are consider themselves more elevated than others, and when you start looking a little bit closer, well, we've overlooked some steps.
Possibly. Yeah, for sure.
Awesome, right?
No, no, but okay. So what have been some of your how-tos in the sense of where have you found some of the things that have seemed to work more? Is more better, or is better just a word? Anyways, I know you.
What the
I know
work
you've done
better?
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I think really for me, this can be a whole topic too, like in terms of stress management. It really is, I gotta like pump that self-care even more. I gotta put more
Perfect.
attention to it.
Yeah.
What is it that I didn't do? What am
Yeah.
I doing differently? What am I allowing in my life? It really is like journaling really helps me.
Mm-hmm.
Stepping back in a sense, for some people journaling works, for some people doesn't. Like for me, going on hikes really gives me that perspective. I really think about all the different parts of I kind of do an evaluation process.
Mm-hmm.
And I look at, because so before that though, there's the process of really knowing what does help you.
Yeah.
Is the process of really having a self-care routine. Is
Yeah.
the process of really having an understanding of what aligns with you. Right? So it's not a simple answer, but the answer is evaluation and reflection, as well as stepping back, right? That's awareness, stepping back, evaluating and reflecting, and then really coming up with tangible things that I can
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So working 7 hours today really stresses me out. How can I break that down? What can I get done in 2 hours?
Or does it all have to be done?
Or does it at all have to be done? What can I just not do?
So I want to add a step right at the very beginning, right
Okay.
at the front. I love what you said there, especially around the self-care, right? So I think that is a step. The step before that is saying to yourself that you are worth that self-care.
Absolutely. But that comes with having done the work of really recognizing that self-care is even something that you need, that it's important, like you're
Well,
pointing to, that you're worth that self-care, right?
yeah,
Which is the missing piece that most people have. Self-care is selfish. I don't have time for self-care.
absolutely,
Is that going to
absolutely.
help to get
I'm a
things done?
pleaser.
No,
I got to
get
do that.
things
Yeah,
done.
yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's really having done the work to understand yourself, understand what helps you feel better,
And that you're
understand.
worth it. You're worth everything.
Right,
You're
right,
worth peace of mind.
right. And if you're not there, it really is about, well, who can I look up to that knows how to do that in a way that I don't, right? Maybe it is listening to a podcast like this.
Yeah, or reading a
Maybe I
book
just
sometimes.
Google it
Yeah.
and Rick and Fatí come up, right? I mean, maybe there's someone that I really admire, and I'm just
Yeah.
gonna start digging into how are they doing things. I'm
Yeah.
gonna ask them,
Yeah, exactly.
what
I
do
mean,
you do?
that's how I started. I did. People started to resonate with me. I started to listen to them, and they
Right,
said, well, it's something about them, right? So I did more exploring, right?
right,
And that's part of it. Like, but I wouldn't do that unless I felt I was worth doing that for.
right. Or maybe I realize I just cannot bring myself to do that. And so, like we're going back to step one, awareness.
Yeah.
I'm aware that I'm stressed, that I don't know how to take the first step to change that. I'm not capable of doing that. So again, who can help me do that? Sometimes it really is just about raising your hand and asking for help.
I need help. I need
I
help.
need help.
Three little
Investing in,
words that are very
yeah,
hard sometimes to say, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because I get it. I get it. If I'm not at that level of understanding, if I haven't done that kind of work on myself, it's not that simple to say, I'm just going to step back and do a little reflection and come up with a self care plan. I've never taken care of myself. I don't have a self care plan. What does feed me? What is this, mumbo jumbo? Like I don't have that belief system, right? And so maybe really focus on the fact that there's awareness around the fact that something needs to change.
Yeah.
And who else has done this? How can I listen to them and learn from them? And that's very much the reason why we do this podcast, right? To
Sure.
create
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
help people have more awareness around these things, right? You're not alone. You don't have to do it alone. Yeah, we do often point to the fact that it all comes from the inside out. does help to have a little bit of support in
Oh,
getting
100%.
right in
Absolutely.
getting
Absolutely. Because
because being
it
able,
can be very confusing. It
it
can
can
be
be very
very confusing.
confusing
Yes.
because I don't really know how to do this, right?
Yeah.
So that's where the how to's come in, right? The how to is raise your hand and ask for help. Look at someone that has what you want and see how they did it. Ask them questions, listen to podcasts, like really get informed. And if you can't do it on your own, that is okay. That is okay. You'll get there eventually. You're not going to need a therapist or a coach for the rest of your life, but you might need a little jump start, right? You might need a little jump start. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's why there are people like Rick and I and therapists that help people get unstuck. We
Yeah.
all need
I get it.
help getting
Yeah.
out of the ditch sometimes. And you know, and removing the shame and the guilt around that is actually really important and perhaps a really good topic to talk about next time.
Oh, yeah. Vulnerability, shame, blame, all that kind
Right?
of stuff. Yeah.
Guilt. Yeah,
Brene
yeah.
Brown. Ooh, my favorite. Anyway, as
Amazing.
always,
It went well. We didn't know where this was gonna go because we were having a discussion before this, and we were
well,
kind of
yeah. Well,
seeing
you
different
know what? It was
views of this.
yeah,
But I think we have it was all the same conversation on so many levels.
absolutely. Once again, thank
And,
you very much.
and yeah, absolutely. And everyone, if you enjoyed this episode, if you found value in it and you can think of someone that needs to hear this, please share the episode, rate it, subscribe, follow us, show up next week, give us your questions or comments. If there's anything that you want to add to it, please just put it in the show comments. We love to hear from you.
Yeah,
And
and if you're looking for recommendations about places to look or read or other podcasts other than our own, yeah, I mean, we have lots of resources for you to play with.
so many. I mean, these days there's so many. Just
Oh yeah,
really starting from something like this, a podcast or a book, or and Google,
yeah,
right? Google. Or experts. Anyone who's an expert in this
yeah.
field.
Okay. Well, thank
Anyway,
you again. Yeah.
thank
You take
you.
care.
I am ready to turn my fan on. Full disclosure, I'm so hot. And see you next time, everyone.
Bye now.
Bye.